Galentine's Day is coming up on February 13th, and ladies, Treveley Park in downtown is where you need to be to celebrate. There's a lot to do, like creating custom bouquets, decorating cookies, and you can even create Galentine's Day cards. So grab all the gals and head to Treveley Park. This event is free, but register at downtownhouston.org/calendar. The first 60 to register will also receive a personalized pink hair bow. Come celebrate Galentine's Day at Treveley Park, downtown Houston. Get energized and revived. Today on CityCast Houston, our city saw the most road deaths ever in a year. But will Mayor Whitmire do anything about it? Oh, and the city's budget is a mess as well. Let's break down those stories and more with Pulitzer Prize finalist Evan Mintz. It's Friday, February 7th. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Evan, how are you?
I'm doing well, enjoying this warm weather.
Yeah, it's been nice. Let's get right into it. The road deaths. Man, this is wild, and I know you're passionate about this. Tell me more.
You know, I am passionate about this because last year we had 345 people killed in Houston area streets, higher than the number of homicides we had. It's very depressing. And one of the things that's most shocking about this is that you don't see politicians and activists respond to road deaths in the same way that we respond to homicides. We don't lift up the victims. We don't condemn the perpetrators. You don't see politicians banging their fist on the lectern saying they're going to catch the killers and we're going to be tough on crime and accusing each other of being weak on crime for failing to get at the issue. And that's a real shame because there's a lot the city could be doing to make people safer on our streets. In fact, the Chronicle reporting by Doug Begley on this issue, which is excellent, compared us to Austin, compared us to Los Angeles, and pointed out that we are less safe than these other cities on a per capita basis.
Why is this happening? Why aren't the politicians, why aren't local leaders, banging the drums and saying, okay, we need to stop this. We need to stop. I know Mayor Turner had Vision Zero as a big focus, and things improved under that plan, but why aren't current leaders doing it?
You know, I don't know. Mayor Whitmire has been very skeptical around the idea of building streets for safety. He keeps on trying to build them for speed. And there are a lot of folks out there who view any road safety effort as framed in a zero-sum fight between people inside cars and people outside cars. But the stats that we have laid out before us show that the people most likely to be hurt or killed on our roads are drivers. And the people who would benefit the most from safer roads are drivers. And it's not just about deaths. It's about injuries that can last your whole life. It's about having to drop a 4-figure check to repair damage from a minor fender bender. It's about those insurance bills that put a strain on your budget. I mean, if you live in a car in Houston, which you probably do, you don't want to die in your car. And I really think we need to have this mind shift where we look at road safety as a thing that benefits not just people who walk, not just people who bike, but more than anyone, people in cars.
You mentioned Austin, LA as cities that we were compared to, and it is more dangerous here in Houston. I want to zoom out a little bit, right? Because let's just compare it to Texas. Road deaths in Texas decreased in the same time frame, while ours in the city increased.
That's right.
Wow. How's that possible?
You know, I don't want to conflate correlation and causation, but you're seeing other cities take real effort into building safer roads. And Houston was starting to go along that path. And over the past year, we've halted a bunch of projects. The mayor has torn up projects that had previously been done. And I know where I live in West University, road safety is a big issue, particularly for kids who walk to Westview Elementary or families who want to walk to parks. And the mayor recently brought up that she had been working with Houston council member Abby Kamen on improving the intersection at University and Kirby, a very busy intersection, but you have a lot of people walking over there to get to the Rice Village. And there had been a project in the works and it was stalled and nobody knows why. The Public Works Department at the city of Houston doesn't know why. And the mayor of Houston isn't saying why. And meanwhile, Westview residents are asking our little city if maybe we could install automatic red light cameras or speed cameras to help with enforcement like you see in cities across the country. But the state of Texas prohibits it. We're actually tying our hands when it comes to catching criminal drivers. I mean, in Texas, you can get away with being soft on crime as long as you do it in a car.
Wow, that is so maddening. And yeah, it feels dangerous walking around. We were actually in the Rice Village area last weekend, And just trying to cross over, it takes forever,
Yeah.
right? And then when you do, you're just on edge the whole time. Like you never know, is it going to be a distracted driver? Is it going to be somebody who's not following the signals?
Mhm.
It is scary, but that's the reason I'm bringing this up is how much of this is on us as Houstonians, as drivers, right? Like there's only so much you can do. And maybe you'll push back on this when it comes to laws, when it comes to roads. How much is it on us? Because we suck as drivers. We are not good drivers. Phones are the worst thing ever. How can we disable phones? We are so bad.
No, I think you're absolutely right. There's reason to believe we're seeing more distracted drivers, people looking at their phones, but also cars developed with big screens in them. Cars are getting bigger, heavier. The front bumpers are higher up. So if you do hit someone, you don't hit their legs, you hit their chest. Much more deadly. And I also think just people drive like madmen. They drive crazily. And this really saw a spike in road violence around COVID, like you did with violent crime. But all across the country, we're starting to see that decline a little bit as well. But I do kind of wish Houston had like a PSA of maybe some local sports heroes like driving their way to the game and they're running late and they're saying to each other, no, drive the speed limit. Like you got to be safe. You got to be friendly to everyone else on the road. I just want to set like the example of how you should be driving, of how to merge, of how to let people in. But right now, if you're out there driving and you're trying to follow the law and you're trying to follow the speed limit, you've got everyone else zooming past you.
Exactly. Good luck when there's 6 lanes on a freeway and everyone's going 80, nobody's slowing down. It sucks. So final question on this one. What are next steps? Do you think anything will happen with Mayor Whitmire's administration that this will be a focus?
I really think that you need folks to get loud in the same way that you see Crime Stoppers get loud about gun crimes and other violent crimes. We need to start treating road deaths as these preventable tragedies. And it's not just more police enforcement that we need. We need to build roads in ways that compel safe driving in the same way where if you want to be safe, you lock your car door, you lock your house door, you put lights in neighborhoods. There are things we can do now to make safer streets.
Look, there's no place like Texas, except when it comes to skiing or my personal favorite, snowboarding. And I get it, you're heading to snowier pastures, but before you leave Texas, grab one last taste of the real Texas in Amarillo. If you love a good Texas road trip like me, then Amarillo needs to be on the top of your list because it's quirky, wild, western, and a spontaneous city. I mean, where else can you spray paint a Cadillac, cruise down Route 66, and even find that perfect cowboy or cowgirl hat for rodeo season? Here's a pro tip for me. If you're driving to a ski destination, make sure you stop at Palo Duro Canyon right outside of Amarillo and hike in the second largest canyon in the US. Heck, I think you should stop on the way back as well because of how amazing it is. After that hike, be sure to carb load on some Tex-Mex and then pop into a speakeasy in Amarillo and grab a well-deserved drink. The mountains may be calling, but Amarillo will make you proud to call Texas home. Start planning your trip to Amarillo at visitamarillo.com and après ski into the real Texas. We're in those gloomy winter months right now, and for me, vibrant art always sparks some joy and light. And you can find some inspiration embarking on a stunning journey of light and color in the exhibition Gauguin in the World at the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston. This exhibition offers new perspectives on Paul Gauguin's life and work, his artistic networks and influences, while capturing his enduring legacies. Featuring more than 150 of Gauguin's paintings, sculptures, prints, and drawings across 6 galleries, Gauguin in the World truly encompasses his entire career. It starts with his impressionist beginnings in Paris to his final years in South Pacific, with half of the exhibition devoted to his work in Tahiti and the Marquesas Islands. Gauguin in the World is on view through February 16th. You can learn more at mfah.org/Gauguin. That's mfah.org/GAUGUIN. All right, Evan, there were a lot of big stories in the city of Houston. And by the way, the HISD sick out that happened this weekend, we're going to spend a lot of time on that on Monday's episode. So definitely subscribe if you haven't. Stay tuned in for that one. But my big story is an education one. It's one that we've talked about a lot. But as expected, the Texas Senate Bill 2 has officially passed through the Texas Senate, and that's the $1 billion school voucher bill that will give family money for private school. Now it heads to the House, where Governor Abbott has said that there is enough support for the bill to pass this time. It hit the roadblock of not passing the last time around during the 88th legislative session. Now, what are your thoughts?
I try sometimes to look at this from a nonpartisan issue. If I really wanted school vouchers to work, if I believed in them, what would the law look like? Well, it would be written in a way that, say, delivered vouchers specifically to people who need them in failing school communities, low-income communities, people who have special needs. It would have lots of strings attached after the fact and data collection to make sure money is only going to good schools in the same way that we do lots of rigorous assessments of public schools and even charter schools. And if you look at the laws it's written, it doesn't do any of that stuff. There barely contains who it goes to, putting a preference of sending these vouchers to people who make 500% of the poverty line for a family of four, which I think is like $160K, $140K?
Roughly, yeah. Round up to about $160K.
That's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
And there's no strings attached in a strong way at the end, where we're not collecting the data we need from individual schools to make sure that the students going to them are having better outcomes than they would have if they just went to a public school.
I want to piggyback off of something you said, like, if Republicans really cared about school choice for lower income neighborhoods and lower income students, like giving them a chance to go to private school, then put that in the bill. Don't give it to people who are already in private school, because then it comes off as you are just helping out the rich who are already in private school, right? It just put that in there. If that truly is what you care about, do that, because then I'll be like, okay, I kind of see where you're coming from. And by the way, this is a $1 billion bill right now, Evan. It could balloon up to $4.5 billion, according to one study. Representative Gene Wu, who was on with us this week as well, he estimates between $6 to $7 billion. That's going to be the final number.
No, I think it's astounding. We've seen this tried in lots of different states, and none of them really work. Jerusalem Demsis over the Atlantic had a nice rundown on the current state of research on charter schools and vouchers. And admittedly, though some of the research is limited in the number of places we've studied, but the charters that have been studied are found to improve outcomes for students. Like when you add new, reasonably regulated schools into systems, you get better outcomes. Vouchers, where they've been tried and studied, do not get better outcomes. They really don't. You're just pumping cash out there with people who have incentives to collect the cash and don't have incentives to get better outcomes for students. And the rhetoric and response is, oh, so you don't trust families to make the right choices? And the answer is no. No, because if they don't have the data, then they don't know how to make a good choice. You need to do good data collection. You need to have strings attached to data. You need to make sure the money follows good outcomes, and we have incentives in the system for good outcomes, and we're not writing a bill that does that, and nobody seems to care that we're not writing a bill that does that. It frustrates me how this keeps getting referred to as a fight over school choice. Texas already has very robust school choice. Choice within districts, between districts, with charters, and yes, you can pay out of pocket for a private school if you want. And we've also seen what happens when you add government dollars to bolster what people can pay in tuition. You give parents $10,000 to spend on private school tuition. Private schools are going to raise their tuition by $10,000.
Yep. I'm so glad you brought that up. When I'm thinking about the weekend and what to do, there's one spot that's always on my list: downtown Houston. My oldest daughter loves going to downtown because there's this excitement that you only feel when you're in the center of the city, with its parks and restaurants and theaters and so many events. Houston's original neighborhood, downtown, truly has something for everyone. I'm talking about meetups for pups and people, blanket bingo, free movies in the park, and don't forget amazing festivals. There's always something new, like their Black History Month celebration at Market Square Park and Galentine's Day at Trebley Park. It's time to experience Houston like never before by visiting or revisiting downtown Houston. Start planning your next adventure in downtown by heading to downtownhouston.org. Downtown Houston, get energized and revived.
I see you looking at me.
Can I have your attention, please? Yes, I, Wanda Sykes here. You ever think about all the nicknames we have for breasts? Boobs, tatas, the girls, chesticles, bubbies. Heck, you might even have your own nickname for them. And yet, even though they get so much attention, they're still so ignored when it matters most. What's up with that? Well, on February 9th, tune in to see why I'm talking so much about breasts and visit yourattentionplease.com to learn more.
All right, let's get to our most overlooked story of the week. Evan, this is one that could erase some taxes, new fees. What is happening with the city budget? Because it is wild.
Controller Chris Hollins has basically said that he doesn't think he can sign off on the budget as things go forward right now. He said that this week there needs to be either significant cuts to city services or new revenue to get a budget that actually squares out. And this might be overlooked. It feels like a huge thing, but I think it's being overlooked because the city budget's been an issue for a long time. It has been unsustainable for a long time, and we've kept things going by relying on one-time revenue sources, whether it's selling city land or getting federal recovery dollars or getting state dollars, lots of stuff like that. But we're reaching the limits of what we can do. And over the past year, things have gotten much worse. The city is facing a $300 million budget gap out of a $7 billion plus budget. Last year it was $7.3 billion with about a $200 million deficit. But the Turner administration had left lots of money in the savings account for Whitmire and the current administration to deal with. And Whitmire, he ran this campaign attacking Turner, attacking past mayors, saying they haven't taken on these long-term budget obligations. They haven't fixed it. They keep kicking the can. I don't see the mayor doing anything now. He's had a whole year to get at it. He hasn't cut spending. He hasn't found new long-term revenue sources. He's gotten some money from the state. He's tried to squeeze, say, Metro. He's made a lot of noise about squeezing TERSs for cash, but mostly he just has them spending more money to redesign projects in ways that he wants. Where is the solution? And you would think that the fiscal conservatives who were really on Turner throughout his entire time in office to say that his pension reform that saved our city billions didn't go far enough, to say we weren't being rigorous enough, are now totally silent on this.
Yeah, and when Chris Hollins brought this up during city council, Mayor Whitmire basically said, oh, this is politics. What? No, this is a real concern. Your main budget guy is saying we need to figure this out. I know you don't want to raise taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I know you don't want to put in more fees or add new fees for citizens, but something needs to be done. And by the way, that the extra money, it's about $360 million, according to the city's finance department. But you really don't want to dip into that because when Chris Hollins joined us, that hurts your bond rating.
Mm-hmm.
That hurts you as a city if you start spending that. So you want to keep that around there. And it's not just politics. These are real concerns.
I know. And, the path forward when Whitmire first got elected seemed pretty clear. He got elected with a lot of Republican support. He would come in and say, we're going to cut so-and-so percent in spending. There's a lot of opportunities to get rid of overlapping services. City and county both have library systems. City and county both have park systems. Are there ways that you can integrate a lot of that? And then after you do that, you go and say, hey, Republicans, you voted for me. You trusted me. We cut spending, but now we need to lift the revenue cap. Since it got put in place, we've denied the city about $500 million in revenue. It doesn't really save individual homeowners that much money over the long run. So now's the time to lift it. We're going to use it to pay for police and firefighters and all this stuff. But he just hasn't done that. I don't know why you don't do the easy play.
By the way, what's the timeline now to get all this figured out, pass the budget?
Well, the budget usually goes through in the summer around June. And the mayor had been saying that in the past, it took them too long to get the budget out and he wants to get it earlier. But I don't know if that's going to happen.
What can city council do about this?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I mean, the mayor really has a lot of control over the budget. And city council members can tag it. They can use their 3 votes to try to get things added to the agenda. They can raise issues and build support. But I mean, we're going to see where things go.
We'll definitely keep our eyes on this one and see what will happen here in the upcoming months because it is such an important story. I'm going to get to my most overlooked story, Evan, and we're starting to see the real local impact of Trump's immigration crackdown.
Mhm.
The Trump administration canceled temporary protective status, or TPS, for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans in the country. TPS is a legal protection against deportation. It was created by Congress in 1990 for people from countries facing war, natural disasters, or humanitarian crisis. And people who have TPS status have a work permit, but it does not provide a pathway to citizenship. Now, Trump is claiming that this program was being abused. And by the way, this impacts over 300,000 Venezuelans across the country. And, we don't know how many Venezuelans in Houston are under that TPS protection, but there are 54,000 Venezuelans living here. And this is one of the fastest growing population bases here in the city of Houston amongst immigrants. These are people who are part of our community. Katy has a huge population of Venezuelans. You've got people who are working in school, who are, again, working in restaurants, are part of this Houston community, and it's going to impact them. But man, my heart just breaks. I mean, they're at a risk of being deported for doing nothing wrong.
I know they follow the rules. They try to do everything right, and they're getting
Mhm.
punished for it. I remember a time when you'd hear, even the most hardcore Republicans say things like, my position on immigration is straightforward. Legal, good; illegal, bad. And people are trying to do it the legal way. They were here with legal approval, and now they're trying to turn that off. And also, what I just don't understand is that they fled here from Venezuela, a country taken over by a communist dictator. So shouldn't we want to welcome them here in the same way that we welcome people from Cuba over the decades? Don't we want to show that America is a land of refuge for people who are fleeing tyranny? And I feel like it's going to hurt Houston, too. I remember hearing from the head of the Dallas Federal Reserve. And he said that cities grow, regions grow through two ways. You have population increases and increases to productivity. And Houston has population growth. We have it in ways that so many cities across the country wish they had: St. Louis and Cleveland and Buffalo. And we often have it because people are coming here from other countries. If we start to kick them out, that slows our economic growth. That hurts our city.
Yeah, so true. And by the way, some Venezuelans feel betrayed by President Trump because,
Mhm.
on the campaign trail, he was saying he's going to focus on removing immigrants with criminal backgrounds. And this, action kind of affects a lot of hardworking families who really, feel like they have no place to go right now. So this is it's heartbreaking. It is so heartbreaking, impacting such an important community. And, again, these are the national actions impacting our city and our communities and our people. So
I think every bit of public resource put into trying to get at and deport someone who is law-abiding, tries to come here legally, tries to do the right thing, diverts resources that should be going after people who are trying to hurt others, who are criminals, who are running drugs or labor trafficking or sex trafficking. We really are misdirecting where our resources should be going.
Yeah. And one last thing I want to put out there, and I say it every time when it comes to immigration crackdowns: are you making it easier for people to get that pathway to citizenship? Are you helping break down that timeline? Because it takes years sometimes to go through the court system, instead of just going after everybody, let's make it easier. Let's cut down the timeline a little bit because it is really, really long. So, I don't know if that will happen under this administration, but just want to throw that out there.
Right.
All right, let's get to our moment of joy. Evan, what do you got for me?
My moment of joy, I feel like I say this every year, but outside, highs in the 80s, lows in the 60s, it's time to put my tomatoes in the ground. I've been growing them in little pots indoors since December, and they're doing all right, and I'm ready to put them in. My garden survived the freeze surprisingly well. I've got a bunch of beds that need some new compost, but just looking forward to those fresh tomatoes come April and May. It's needs that action now, and I can't wait.
Time to plan ahead right now. You'll be proud of me. I planted some sugar canes.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
Sugar cane?
Sugar canes. I love sugar canes. All right.
Yeah?
Straight up eating them, just peel it and just chew on the sugar cane. You get that hit of sugar. It's kind of acidic. It's so good.
I've never done that. now I want to. Now I want to try.
Oh, it's so good. I had a neighbor give me some, and he was like, you can just take the middle part and plant it, and you can have them in about 6 months. So when I get my first crop, Evan, I'm going to send you a big, long sugar cane.
I'll plant that and grow my own. That's how I got a banana tree. Friend just gave me like a cutting from a banana tree. I put it in the ground. It starts growing and growing. And now I've got like a little jungle of banana trees in my garden.
Yeah. We'll get some tomatoes and sugar canes for CityCast Houston listeners too. Why not?
Awesome. Yeah. Hey, if I got extras.
On Sunday, you know what's happening? Super Bowl. Yep,
I know,
it's Super Bowl Sunday this weekend. And look, our Texans aren't in it. And that's fine. Maybe in the future, right, Evan?
Yeah, one of these years.
Yeah, but there are 6 Houstonians, by the way, playing in the game for the Eagles, including quarterback Jalen Hurts. So, Evan, are you going to be rooting for the Eagles or the Chiefs?
Oof. I think I'm rooting that I eat a lot of buffalo wings. Like, that is what I am rooting for.
Okay. So that's the big thing. You just want to enjoy the food that comes with it.
I'm hoping for a fun game. I'm hoping that I don't get mad at the refs for like ruining it.
Ooh, that might happen though.
Yeah.
But the Chiefs have been getting a lot of favorable calls. I don't know who I'm rooting for. I think the Chiefs are going to win this one. Look, they got one of the best quarterbacks ever in Patrick Mahomes. And yeah, they do get some calls go their way, but hey, you're still a legendary quarterback. That team is rolling. I have the Chiefs winning, but I'm excited about Kendrick Lamar's halftime performance. I want to see, exactly what songs he's going to perform. Are we going to all make fun of Drake afterwards? That big beef. So it's going to be a big weekend. I can't wait. And we've got our final football game. So enjoy it. Evan, thank you so much, man.
Thanks for having me. Love doing it.
That was Evan Mintz. You can read more about all of the stories we discussed with the links in our show notes. All right, it's the end of the week, and if you haven't shared an episode of CityCast Houston with your friends, then do it now. It's one of the best ways to help us grow the show. We really appreciate it. Also, drop us a rating and review wherever you listen so others can find us, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Are you looking for something to do this weekend? Check out our daily newsletter, Hey Houston, where you'll get curated events around town every weekday in your inbox. That will do it for this week here on CityCast Houston. Our producers this week were Lizzie Goldsmith, Francisco Kilgore, and Carleon Jones. Our newsletter editors this week were Natalia Aldana, Adrian Gonzalez, and Brooke Lewis. Our executive producer is Laura Isensee, and I'm your host, Raheel Ramzanali. Our music is by the band All the Kimonos. We'll be back on Monday to break down what's been happening in HISD, from a massive student protest to rats at a local middle school. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new.